Hi, it's Simon Beck here, founder of Care Home Marketing Expert and author of Seal the Deal. In this video, I'm going to do a quick studio run-through of a presentation I did at the NADEX 2013 Care Conference down at the NEC in Birmingham. Now, this is a live run-through, and one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was that done is better than perfect. So please forgive me if there's any ums and ahs and ers during the recording of this, but the most important thing is to watch it and take away the lessons from it. Okay, so what did we look at? What did we learn at the presentation? First thing I'm going to show you is a case study of Rose Lodge, which is a care home down in Exmouth in Devon, and that neatly illustrates two of the strategies that I want to show you today in this marketing masterclass presentation. The first of which is positioning for maximum profit. Now, the care home industry has changed dramatically over the last 20 years, and I think it's a good point for us to evaluate where you position your care home in the marketplace and whether it's worth changing that and how that can affect your profits that you earn in the care home. The second one is how to capture the 95% of prospective residents that you're currently ignoring. Now, again, in the care industry, nobody's talking about this. In fact, nobody really knows about this, so this is brand new for you guys watching this video. And these two strategies are really important because they can completely change the fortunes of your care home and ensure your long-term survival over the medium term, as far ahead as we can see. Now, the final thing we're going to look at is the marketer's best friend, and I'm just going to leave you wondering for now what the marketer's best friend is, but I will tell you later on in the presentation. So let's have a look at the Rose Lodge case study. Now, this is a 24-bed home in Exmouth, which was registered when I first came to visit it for general residential and dementia care homes, and it's owned by a lovely gentleman called Peter de Groot. Now, Peter phoned me and asked me to come down to do some consulting on the home because he wanted to change his marketing. The situation was that the home had been contracted out to be run by an independent contractor for the last 2 or 3 years, and unfortunately they hadn't done a particularly good job in Peter's view, and the home was only half full out of 24 beds. It had a reputation which was going down in the local community, and so it was really suffering. But Peter decided to get involved personally again and transform the fortunes of the home. So let's have a look at how we did that. The first thing I think you need to do when you're facing a situation like this is to define what the problem is. And any home which is suffering from poor occupancy can be boiled down into one of two simple things. Either the phone's not ringing, which is an inquiry problem, so basically you're not generating enough inquiries, or you're not converting enough of those inquiries into profitable new clients. In other words, when they come to the home, for whatever reason, they're not liking what they find and they're disappearing off down the road to one of your competitors, which is not a good feeling. Now, any business, whether it's a care home or not, actually has what we call an internal perception, an internal reality and an external perception, and these are represented by one of the quadrants, and you can see in my fancy pants diagram here. Now, in the case of Rose Lodge, we had a poor inside reality and a poor outside perception when Peter first took the home back. And what that means is that when people came to the home, they didn't particularly like what they found, and also the image and the reputation that the home was projecting into the community was not particularly good either. Now, the place you want to get to is obviously the green square, where you've got a fantastic inside reality. You're doing a brilliant job of looking after your care home residents, and also you're projecting that out to the community so that they can see what you're doing well and why you're doing it well and exactly how you're doing it well, and that will drive them into your care home to drive the inquiries. Now, if you think of your own care home, and if you're having any occupancy problems, you'll probably actually be falling into one of the two orange squares. So it could be that you've got fantastic marketing and you're doing a brilliant job of presenting that to the world, but when people get to the home for whatever reason they don't like it, and they're not choosing you. So that's the top left square, and the converse of that is that you might have the most fantastic care home there is. You might produce excellent care, but if nobody knows about it, or if the image that you're presenting to the outside world doesn't reflect that, then you're going to suffer on the inquiry wise. Now, one of the most common problems that we see in care home marketing, and when we're looking at changing a client's marketing, is that in any given industry there's a tendency for everybody to copy everybody else's marketing, and that's definitely the true of the care industry. If you look at adverts for care homes, if you look at care home brochures, and if you look at care home websites, they're almost always the same. They say the same sorts of things and depict the same sorts of things. In fact, what I'd like you to do right now is just pause this video and go and have a look at your own website or your own brochure, and then compare it with your competitors. Now, if you could swap the names over so that your name was on your competitor's website and their name was on yours, if that didn't make any difference to the message, then that's typical of the problem that you've got. Your message is the same as theirs, and theirs is the same as yours. And that's one of the biggest issues that we come across in the care home industry. So what we need to do is change that outside perception in order to demonstrate to people exactly why they should be coming to your care home and choosing your care home. I'll give you a quick example of this. When a year or so ago we moved into a new house in a little village nearby a big town. And as quite often is the case, we actually got a few leaflets to the door when we arrived, one which was for a Chinese takeaway. And we all like Chinese, so we had a look at this leaflet, and it was a beautifully presented leaflet. Fantastically well laid out, the image was fantastic, the menu looked good, it had a wonderful picture of this Chinese temple-y looking building on the front, and we thought, wow, that looks like a fantastic place that we should go and eat at. So we did. And when we found it, we had to go down all these little back streets and back alleys, and it was right at the back of the town. And we got there, and there was this faded shop front with this this sort of door with the paint peeling off. In the windows there were faded menus. The whole thing looked really drab and miserable, and we wondered if we'd got to the right place, but we were at the right place. Anyway, we went in, and the inside of the place was just as bad as the outside, so we turned around and fled. And that's a typical example, a perfect example of how you've got to make sure that your outside perception and your inside reality are the same and as good as each other. So let's have a look at how you do that. Right, I've got a question for you. If you have a look at these two doctors, we've got Dr. Ivan Hani and Dr. Evaldas Chesnus. No, Chesnulis. I should have chosen somebody with an easier name, I think. The question is, which of these doctors earns the most? Have a little bet with yourself now. If you chose the chap on the right, you would be correct. He earns about 10 times as much as Dr. Hani on the left hand side, and the reason is that he's a specialist. He's actually one of the world's top brain surgeons. Now, you can go anywhere in the UK and you can find a Dr. Hani. He's a general practitioner, a lovely chap, but he's a general practitioner, and they are all over the UK and you can find him anywhere. However, if you want to have brain surgery, the go-to guy, the one that you're going to go to is Dr. Chesnulis. And he charges an absolute fortune because he's a specialist. Now, what's happened is in the care industry, things have changed dramatically over the last 20 years. What we've had is we've had a lot of big companies coming in and buying up smaller care homes. We've had excuse me, a fragmentation of the market, so that there's a lot more ways that people can be looked after. It used to be that you could just go into a local authority care home or a private care home, and that was pretty much it. Now we've got different levels of domiciliary care, we've got care villages, we've got care holiday homes, we've got little assisted living communities. We've got a whole range of different things where we can get care. So the market is definitely fragmented. Now, if you're a generalist in that market, just as Rose Lodge was, where you're trying to provide general residential care and dementia care, that's no good anymore. If you want to earn profit, you need to position yourself in one of these niche areas, and you need to be the absolute best that you can be in that niche, so that people want to come from far and wide to actually be in your care home. So you've got to create that reputation, and you've got to create that internal reality, like we said before, and position yourself in one of these niches. If you don't, you'll be forever a generalist, and as we said before, generalists don't get paid as much as people who are experts and who are specialised in their area. It's kind of like the Harley Street effect. Everybody knows Harley Street. Everybody knows Harley Street is expensive, but if you go there, you get treated the best, you get the best care, you get the best specialists there, and that is the place to go if you want specialist care. And as a result, they make huge profits there. They make huge profits. So if you think about your own care home, what are you doing at the moment? Are you trying to look after everybody, or are you going down one of these niches and positioning your home, positioning yourselves as the experts in the area, the go-to people for your particular type of care? Okay. Just to recap, to position for profit, decide on which part of the market that you want to serve. Are you going to look after? Are you going to be a specialist dementia care? Are you going to be a specialist in nursing care? Are you going to be a specialist in general residential? Is it going to be high class general residential? Are you going to specialise in the local authority market? So you've got to look at who you're going to serve. The second thing to do is to make sure there's a hungry crowd and feed them. That means that whatever area you choose, there's got to be demand for that particular type of care in your area. It's no good becoming a dementia care specialist if you subsequently find out that there's no need for that in your particular area. And the final thing, as I said before, I don't need to stress it again, be a specialist, not a generalist. Now, to link this back to Rose Lodge, what I advised Peter to do was to become a specialist in the dementia care market and position his home as almost like a Swiss clinic, almost the place to come in Devon if you want dementia care. Now, as we said before, you've got the internal reality and the outside perception. So Peter's job was to go out and make that internal reality, so to turn the home into an actual specialist in dementia care, and he's done that incredibly well and incredibly successfully. He's trained all the staff, he's got all the staff on board. They've made changes to the infrastructure of the home, both outside and inside, to make it suit the needs of someone with dementia, and they've integrated incredibly well with the local community. So this is vitally important, because you need to create that internal reality before or at the same time as creating the outside perception. Think about it. There's no point in spending a fortune on marketing, positioning your home as an expert in dementia care, and people thinking they're going to get the best possible service that there is, only for them to turn up and find out that that isn't the case. You've wasted all your money. They'll still go and disappear. Okay, let's move on. In this section of the presentation, we're going to look at how to capture the 95% of prospective residents you're currently missing. Now, that seems like a bold claim, and frankly it is a bold claim, but it's actually a true claim. You are missing 95% of the prospective residents that you could currently be dealing with. Let me show you how this works. Okay, whenever we buy anything of any consequence, which is a one-off purchase or something that we buy infrequently, we go through what we call the buyer's journey. So let's use the example of laser eye surgery. So let's say that I'm interested in laser eye surgery, and I am, because quite frankly when I go in the shower in the morning I can't tell whether I'm picking up the shampoo bottle or the conditioner. I have to have them color coded so that I know what I'm doing. Anyway, I digress. So if I'm interested in, I might like the idea of have heard about laser eye surgery. So the first thing that I would do would be gather information. So I'd go onto the internet, find out what it's all about. What is laser eye surgery? How does it work? Who does it? What sort of benefits could it have for me? once I've decided that yes, this looks good, and this could, really help me because I won't have to wear my glasses anymore. I'll be able to see in the shower. I'll be able to read without glasses, and I won't have to keep remembering them. That sounds great. That stage is what we call the benefits of ownership. So you're looking at the benefits that this thing is going to give you. The next stage you move on to is where you come across some possible objections to ownership. So in the case of laser eye surgery, my objection would be that I don't want to sit there underneath a laser and have somebody put an incredibly powerful piece of energy into my eye to cut minute slices off it, because I don't want to go blind, and I might, and in fact I do, fear that that may be the case. So these are kind of objections to ownership. Another one might be price, for example. Could I afford laser eye surgery? How much is it? So I've moved along the buyer's journey a little bit, and I've got to answer some different questions at this point. Now, if I successfully get over those, my fear of having the laser eye surgery, and move on and decide that yes, I'm going to have it done, we then move on to what we call the vendor selection stage. Now, the vendor selection stage is the last bit. I've decided that I'm going to go ahead with laser eye surgery. I've just got to now decide who's going to do it for me. So I've got to decide, is it going to be this surgeon A, surgeon B, surgeon C, etc. And that's what we call vendor selection. Now, in terms of marketing and in terms of business, what we all tend to consider and focus on is that 5% of the total potential buyers who are in that vendor selection stage. They're the ones with the money in their hand ready to go. And obviously they are the most important people. We definitely want to connect with those people and attract them into our business. However, there are also 95% out there who aren't quite yet ready to buy. There's somewhere along that buyer's journey. And what we want to do is this. We want to connect with those people wherever they are on that buyer's journey, draw them into our marketing funnel, move along the buyer's journey with them by answering all their questions and by positioning ourselves as the experts in this area, so that when it comes to the vendor selection stage, the natural conclusion is that they choose us. They don't need to look at any other options because they already know us, they already like and trust us, they've built up a relationship with us, they know what we're all about, we've helped them along on their buyer's journey, so therefore we're in the driving seat when it comes to buying, and they come to us. And this is one of the most successful strategies that you can employ in your care home. Now let's have a look at this in terms of the way it relates to dementia, because this is what happened at Rose Lodge. The dementia's buyer's journey is very similar. So it starts off with someone seeking information about what dementia is and how to recognize it. You might suspect that your loved one or yourself that you're suffering from it, so out you go and try and find information. And usually you would go on to the internet to try and find that information. That would probably then ultimately result in you going to the doctors to have you to be diagnosed as someone who's living with the condition, and then you move on and you want to then know, how do you care for someone with dementia? So again, you'd probably go back onto the internet, you go to various different websites where they give out that information, or get information locally from your doctor if you can. As you move then further along that buyer's journey, the dementia buyer's journey, unfortunately dementia is a degenerative disease, so obviously somebody's condition is going to get worse, and there will come a point when you can no longer cope at home, and unfortunately you're going to have to seek somewhere for your loved one to go to. Now, before we get to that stage, you might have some domiciliary care, you might have gone to a daycare centre, and you might have had some respite care, but ultimately you realise that you can no longer cope and the person has got to seek some alternative, and that's when you get to the vendor selection stage. You're looking at which option to choose and then from whom. So our job as marketers is to interact with and connect with those people at the earliest possible opportunity in their buyer's journey, in their dementia buyer's journey, and then to do exactly what I just described with the laser eye surgery, we give them all the valuable information that they're seeking. We tell them how to care for someone with dementia at home. We tell them how to recognize the disease, what sort of options are available to them. We then, as they progress down the journey, we can then offer them possibly home care, or we can certainly offer them support in the form of a support group. We can offer them support in the form of a daycare centre. We can offer respite care, and ultimately, obviously, we want them to come into the home on a permanent basis. The question is, how do you get to those people? How do you identify them, and how do you get them into your marketing funnel? And this is what we did, and this is what I would suggest to you in any sort of care home. It doesn't just apply to dementia. This applies to anybody who's seeking care. So here's what we did. We created 2 websites. Now, the web is the #1 place that people go to seek information these days. They go to seek it through search engines like Google. They go to seek it also through social media, through things like Facebook, by interacting with their friends and finding out and asking your friends, just as you normally would if you were there, or what do you recommend for this, that or the other. So we created 2 websites in particular for Rose Lodge. The one on the right, the green website, was specifically targeted at that vendor selection stage. So that was all about why you should choose Rose Lodge, how that was superior to all the other homes in the area that, in fact in the county, that provided dementia care, and specifically why you should choose it if you were at that vendor selection stage, if you are ready and wanting to find a care home. Then what we also did is we created a blog called Dementia Care Devon. And Peter has had, I must give credit to Peter here, he's taken this on board and he's provided an enormous amount of content for this blog. But the purpose of the blog is so that when people who are in Devon, who are searching for dementia care and articles about dementia care, information about dementia care, it's all published on the blog. They find the blog, they read the blog, they get addicted to the blog almost, because this is providing with all the information that they need. So therefore the blog guides them along from their first interaction right through to the vendor selection stage, when they pass on to the other website, or even in many cases they don't even need the other website because they're quite happy with the information that's on the blog. So what you need to do is put out valuable content. In fact, let's look at the strategy. On that blog, you put out the valuable content. You answer all the questions that the person might have about dementia care. What we also do is we want to capture that person's contact details so that we can move them along and guide them along that dementia care journey. So in exchange for their name and email, we give out these free reports and information about how to understand, how to recognize dementia, how to care for someone with dementia, etc. Now, once we've got their name and email, we then drip feed the content that positions you as the expert. So this is done with what's called an autoresponder, and that is a piece of software where you pre-write a series of emails which give out this content. They're all personalized with the person's name, and the software does that automatically. So they come into your marketing funnel when they're first looking for information about dementia care. We connect with them, capture their contact details, and then as they progress along that journey, we drip feed more content to them via emails, and they can be video emails, audio emails, or just normal text emails. And as we're doing that, as we're supporting them in that journey, supporting them along, it automatically positions us, or positions you, as the expert in your field, the go-to person, a person who you've developed a relationship with, they've developed a relationship with, who they trust because you're giving them all this valuable content, so that you become the logical conclusion when we get to the vendor selection stage, as I said. So here's what it looks like in diagram form as we're attracting family and relatives. So we've got the benefits of ownership, free reports and videos. They are on the blog, and people are attracted to the blog to find these reports, and when they download those reports, in they go into that autoresponder sequence. They could also come in at the objections to ownership stage when they're a bit further along their journey with dementia, but again we're giving out free reports and information and video in return for the contact details from the blog, and in they go to the further along on the autoresponder sequence to the appropriate position which suits them. And then finally, if they get to the vendor selection stage without discovering us, they then go to the company website, and again they can go into an autoresponder sequence which follows up their inquiry from that website, which will result in a placement. So here's what it looks like in practice. These are a few screenshots from the Dementia Care in Devon website. Sorry, from the blog, I beg your pardon. So you can see we've got the free guides here. Click here, so you go onto the website, click there, and you can download those guides in return for your email address. You can see these are all the categories on the blog, and Peter, as I said before, has done a fantastic job of publishing content all about dementia care in every sort of aspect. Every time that they find something out about dementia care, every time they find some way of looking after people with dementia care, it's all published on the blog, and that provides massive evidence for anybody of how well that people at Rose Lodge are being looked after. And this is not just for the families, this is all for the local authorities as well, because local authorities in actual fact are just as keen on this information. If you think of yourself, if you think of the position of a social worker, they're not experts in dementia care, they're a social worker. So their heads on the block when they're making recommendations and giving out information about dementia care homes. So if they can be certain, and they've seen all the evidence of how well somebody's been looked after at your particular home by what they see on the blog, then again you're going to get the nod and the wink that go there first, that's the place to be. And finally, as a result of all this, other things happen. Now, I know in Peter's case, he's been asked to talk about dementia care by the local authority. He's been asked by various different organisations in Devon. He's becoming the expert and the authority on dementia care in Devon, and he's been published in the Journal of Dementia Care. He's been featured on Radio 4. All this came about because of the content that is being published on that blog, which positions Rose Lodge as the place to go and positions Peter as the expert in dementia care in that area. So you can see how excuse me, cumulatively, how people, the more information you publish, the more opportunities there are for people to come into contact with it. So therefore, the more people get drawn into the blog who are looking for dementia care. So it's like a huge snowball rolling down the hill. It starts small with a little bit of content. The more content you publish on there, the stronger the pull that blog has it, and the wider it pulls in people from all over the county and all over the area. Now, it's not just Rose Lodge that has used this. You can see the same sort of thing with a general residential care home here, Blackrod House. They do dementia as well. They have a dementia wing. But this is up in the north. And they've done the same thing, but this is a guide that they've got for how to choose a care home. So exactly the same sort of thing applies here. You're connecting with what people are trying to find out on the internet before they get to that vendor selection stage. And in this case, you can see here how they have to put the name and the email in, and they get the guide. So that immediately identifies the person who requests that as somebody who is interested in care, and then you can start to market them and position yourself as the expert. Okay, so what happens when you do this? Well, in the case of Rose Lodge, within 6 months of starting to implement this, the home was full. And as I say, I must give tremendous credit to Peter because, and as I said before, there are two components to this. It's absolutely vital that you actually do create this internal reality, in this case a Centre for Dementia Care Excellence, but it's also important that you spread the word of that internal reality. You spread the word of what a great care home that you've got, and demonstrate that to people far and wide. When you do that, you pull people in from a greater distance, they're much more likely to travel from longer distances to get what they perceive to be, and are right in saying, is better care. Now when that happens, so you've got all these inquiries coming in, so then you can start raising your prices. Now I think since I first met Peter, he's had 3 price rises, 2 prices rises in the last 6 months alone, and they've still got a waiting list at the home, and they could have filled those vacancies twice over. Now people are actively wanting to get into Rose Lodge now. They really want to get a place there. It's become a scarce thing. And scarcity is a very powerful emotion. So there are a limited number of places there. There are an awful lot of people who want to get in there, so that allows the home to put up the prices, and the more you put up the prices, the more profit you make. And that is how Rose Lodge has become more successful, has become so successful. First of all, it's been positioned in the marketplace as a centre for dementia care excellence. Secondly, Peter de Groot, the proprietor, has made it into a centre for dementia care excellence. And thirdly, excuse me, sorry about that. Thirdly, we've then put out the information all over the internet, valuable information which draws people in to the home, helps to connect to the home right at the very early stages of their journey with dementia, and then we take them on that journey, so that the natural logical conclusion is they want a place in Rose Lodge. So in a nutshell, that is how you secure the long-term future of your home, by doing the same thing with your home in your area, in your particular area of specialism. So I hope that has been of use to you. Now we've got one final part to the presentation, and you may remember before I asked you, who is the marketer's best friend? Have a think about that. In the live presentation we had all sorts of suggestions, but I'm going to tell you now. The calculator. This is the marketer's best friend, and I'm going to tell you why. This should be, as a care home owner or a care home manager, this should also be your best friend, and I'm going to show you why here. There are 2 key pieces of information that you need to know in your care home. Number 1, how much can you afford to spend to attract a new resident? And number 2, how much do you need for your marketing budget? Now, in my experience, quite often there is no marketing budget with a care home, and it's one of the big mistakes that particularly single care home operators make. And there's no recognition that you do need to spend money to be able to attract a resident. So let's have a look at this in a little bit more detail. In order to be able to work these out, how much you can afford to spend to attract a new resident, you need to first find out what is the average lifetime value of your resident. And by that, what I mean is how much is the average resident worth to you during their stay in your care home. So let's do an example. Let's say the average length of stay, to calculate that you have to take the average length of stay and times it by the weekly fee. So let's say the average length of stay was 3 years, which is 156 weeks, and that you were charging £500 per week. So the lifetime value, the average lifetime value of your resident, in each resident in your care home, would be £78,000. Okay, so that's 78 grand that resident is worth to you. That's vitally important to know and to understand, because here's what happens. You have in your care home every day and every week what I call 78 grand moments. And that is that if you imagine when somebody comes to visit your care home who's interested, think about it, they're carrying that 78 grand in a briefcase with them when they come to see you. And what you do and what you say when they come to visit your care home will determine whether they are going to give you that 78 grand and you're going to benefit from it, or they're going to disappear off down the road to your competitor and give them the 78 grand. These moments happen all the way along your marketing system, but key ones are, for example, when your staff answer the telephone when somebody's making an inquiry. That's a 78 grand moment, because if your staff mess up that telephone call, you've lost that 78 grand. If the person doesn't like what they hear on the phone and don't come to your home, that's it. That 78 grand has gone. So these phone calls are vitally important, and it's exactly the same thing when somebody comes to visit your home. How you show them around, what they see, the way that you behave, that is another 78 grand moment, and you've got the opportunity to either do that well or do it badly. And if you do it badly, you're going to lose those 78 grand moments, and they're going to go to the competitors. And I'm sure you don't want that now, do you? So, excuse me. The next question was, how much do I need for my marketing budget? Well, we've already determined that the average client is worth £78,000 to you. So first of all, you've got to look at how much of that you can afford to spend on acquiring a client. And I would suggest to you that out of a 78 grand budget, you need to be allowing at least £1,000 of that 78,000 to put into your marketing budget to be able to attract a client. Now, it's a bit more complicated than that, but let's have a look at how we work out the budget. What you do is you take the number of beds that you've got, the total number of beds. So let's say you've got a 60-bed home. Now, we said the average length of stay was 3 years. So if we divide the number of beds by the average length of stay, that tells us how many residents we're going to need to find and need to attract into the home each year. So put it another way, let's say that on day one we're full with 60 residents and we don't attract anybody else. Because the average length of stay is 3 years, at the end of 3 years we're going to have no residents left. Okay, so if you take that 60 that are going to disappear over 3 years and divide it by 3, that's 20 per year. Hopefully that's pretty straightforward. So you take that number of residents that you're going to need to attract each year, and then you multiply that by how much you can afford to spend to acquire the client. And as I suggested, I think in a general residential setting or a dementia setting, you need to be allowing at least £1,000 for that figure. We had a very interesting conversation when I did the presentation, and I asked people to put their hand up, and I asked everybody to put their hand up, and asked them to keep their hand up if they would give me £10 in exchange for a client, £50, £100, £500. By the time I got to £500, almost nobody had got their hand left up. So I think there's a lack of understanding in the care industry about the fact that you have to budget for these things. So we take how much you can afford to spend to acquire a client, that's £1,000, times it by the number of residents that you need to attract each year, which is 20. So in our case here, we've got a marketing budget of £20,000. Now that might sound like a lot of money to you, it might sound like a little money to you, I don't know. Depends on where you are at the moment with your marketing and your business. But that's literally what you need to do, and that money would be spent on, as well as things like websites and brochures and advertising, it's also spent on making sure that the interior of the home is up to scratch, you know, that you haven't got the paintwork's all done nicely, that each time a resident leaves the bed is properly presented, etc. But it's vitally important that you look at these figures, you work out what they are, and you put those in your budget. If you don't, what's going to happen is that you're going to find one day that a competitor comes down the road and builds a nice new care home, and all of a sudden you're lacking in you've been relying on just your local reputation and being there to provide you with enough residents, and then all of a sudden you've got this competition and the residents dry up, the inquiries dry up, and you're in big trouble. And if you haven't set aside that budget, and if you haven't spent that money wisely on creating a marketing system to attract new clients in consistently, then you're going to be in trouble. Okay, the final thought I'll leave you with is what marketing really is, and I think there's a lot of misconceptions about this. The way that I like to think about it is the way that it's illustrated here with Shrek and Donkey This is in the original Shrek movie, where they've got to go and rescue the princess, and to do that they've got to go across this rickety rackety bridge, which is suspended over the molten lava. And of course, one false step, if they put their foot down on one of these, one of the planks which is not solid in foundation, your foot goes through, and that's it. You disappear into the lager, into the the magna, and are fried forever. Now this is effectively, that's a good analogy for what's happening in your care home marketing. The care home marketing is a system, and it starts off with the first inkling that your prospective client has that they may need a care home. So they may, it starts off with that initial understanding of, well, maybe it's time to start looking for something else, some help with looking after the care of your loved one. And then that person will then travel across our dodgy suspension bridge here, right the way through to the other side, and the other side represents where they've signed on the dotted line and become a resident in your home. They have to make a number of different steps along that journey, and each one of those steps is on this rickety rackety bridge, just like Shrek and Donkey. Now each one of those planks represents one of those 78 grand moments. So if somebody sees your advert in the newspaper, well, first of all, if somebody doesn't see your advertising and doesn't know your home is there, that's it, 78 grand gone. If you don't connect with them, they don't know you exist, and they go to your competitor, that's it, you've lost your 78 grand. If they see your advert in the paper, but they like your competitor's advert better because it speaks to their needs and their requirements, again, and they don't come and visit you, again, another 78 grand moment. If they get to your website to check you out, and you've got a terrible website, doesn't provide the right information, doesn't talk to them in the right ways, doesn't persuade them to come and visit your home, again, that's another 78 grand moment. That's another way, another opportunity for you to lose that 78 grand. And these things happen all the way along, as on the suspension bridge there. So what marketing really is looking at each one of those individual steps and making sure that it's absolutely firm, absolutely solid, and that it works perfectly, so that you can guide your prospect right from when they first start thinking about a care home successfully through to becoming a resident in your home. So that's the first step, is to fix all the dodgy planks on the bridge, make sure that everything works perfectly. The second step then is to look at each one of those steps and make them better, make them more effective, so that more people see your advert, more people respond to your advert, more people are convinced by your website, and more people are converted when they come to your home. That, combined with the two strategies that I've outlined to you today, is an absolute guaranteed recipe for success and for the long-term future of your care home. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and thank you very much for sticking with me right through to the end if you've got this far. If you want to any help with your marketing at all, obviously please get in touch with us. I would love to speak to you. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to speak with you soon.